From towering elephants that roamed Mediterranean islands to giant birds that stalked the plains of New Zealand, these creatures from the not-so-distant past begs a huge question. Do you know what caused these animals to disappear? How did they shape the cultures that encountered them? And what can they teach us about the fragility and resilience of life on our ever-changing planet? Journey back in time to meet 7 of the most remarkable extinct animals the ancient civilization saw. Our first stop is ancient Egypt, where depictions of animals feature prominently in art, architecture, mythology, and even mummified remains. One creature the ancient Egyptians encountered was the North African aurochs. This massive wild cattle species is an ancestor of modern domestic cattle, but it was significantly larger, with bulls standing up to 6 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing as much as 3,300 pounds. The aurochs had long, curved horns that could reach over 2 feet in length. Aurochs herds once roamed widely across North Africa and the Middle East, grazing in dense forests and open grasslands. Ancient Egyptian petroglyphs dated to the 5th millennium BC depict aurochs being hunted, indicating the importance of this animal as a game species. Aurochs also held symbolic significance and were linked with gods like Apis, who was worshipped in the form of a bull. As forests were cleared for agriculture and aurochs were overhunted, their population dwindled. Although they survived through antiquity, the last known North African aurochs died in the early 1600s. The disappearance of the aurochs was a gradual process, occurring over thousands of years as human civilization expanded and transformed the landscape. The ancient Egyptians would have witnessed the decline of this majestic animal, which once seemed an inexhaustible resource. The loss of the aurochs foreshadowed the impact humans would have on the natural world, as our species became the dominant force shaping the planet's ecosystems. The aurochs' legacy lives on in the domesticated cattle that are now essential to human agriculture and diet worldwide. The process of domestication began around 10,500 years ago in the Near East, as Neolithic farmers selectively bred wild aurochs for desirable traits like docility, milk production, and meat quality. Over generations, these early cattle breeds diverged significantly from their wild ancestors, becoming the diverse array of domestic cattle we know today. From the humped zebu of South Asia to the long-horned ankole of East Africa, the descendants of the aurochs have adapted to a wide range of environments and human needs. The story of the aurochs and its domestication is a testament to the deep history of human-animal relationships and the profound ways in which we have shaped the natural world. Heading over to the island of Crete, the ancient Minoans may have drawn inspiration for mythological creatures from an extinct species of dwarf elephant. Remains found on Crete and other Mediterranean islands reveal a pint-sized pachyderm that adapted to island life by shrinking in size over generations through a process called insular dwarfism. The Cretan dwarf elephant stood just 5 feet tall as an adult, a far cry from its full-sized ancestors that once lumbered across Europe and the Near East. With a shoulder height of under 3 feet, the smallest individuals were diminutive enough to be about knee-high to a human. Despite their small stature, dwarf elephants on Crete were the largest land animals on the island during the Pleistocene epoch. Insular dwarfism is a fascinating example of how evolution can dramatically reshape a species in response to the unique pressures of island environments. On islands, resources are often limited, and there may be few predators, favoring smaller body sizes that require less food and energy to maintain. Over many generations, large mammals like elephants can evolve into dwarf forms that are better suited to their island home. This process has occurred independently in many island populations of elephants, as well as other mammals like hippos, deer, and even humans. The extinct Homo floresiensis of Indonesia, popularly known as the Hobbit, was a diminutive human species that evolved on the island of Flores. Some scholars have proposed that the skulls of dwarf elephants, with their large central nasal cavity, could have been interpreted as a singular eye socket, potentially giving rise to the legend of the one-eyed Cyclops in Greek mythology. While this theory remains speculative, it's intriguing to imagine how an extinct elephant may have influenced one of the most famous monsters of the ancient world. The discovery of unfamiliar animal remains has inspired many mythological creatures throughout history, from griffins to dragons, as humans sought to make sense of the bones of long-lost beasts. The Cretan dwarf elephant disappeared around 10,000 years ago, before the rise of the Minoan civilization, but its memory may have persisted in folklore and legend, passed down through generations until it found its way into the myths that still captivate us today. Returning to mainland Europe, the ancient Greeks and Romans wrote of a formidable creature that once prowled the wilderness: the Eurasian cave lion. One of the largest cat species to have ever lived, the cave lion was up to 25% bigger than modern lions, with males estimated to weigh over 700 pounds. This fearsome feline was well adapted to the cold climate of Ice Age Europe, with a thick mane, robust build, and heavy fur up to 2 inches long. Cave lions feature in Homeric tales and are depicted in Paleolithic cave art, suggesting their importance to early human cultures. The Romans, known for staging spectacular animal spectacles, likely captured cave lions for gladiatorial combat and executions in amphitheaters. The cave lion's reign as apex predator of Ice Age Europe came to an end as the climate warmed and its preferred prey, like reindeer and wild horses, disappeared. By around 10,000 years ago, the Eurasian cave lion was extinct. The loss of this majestic carnivore likely had cascading effects on the ecosystems it once inhabited, as the removal of a top predator can cause dramatic shifts in prey populations and vegetation structure. The extinction of the cave lion also meant the loss of a creature that had inspired awe and fear in humans for thousands of years, from the Paleolithic hunters who painted its image on cave walls to the Roman spectators who watched it battle in the arena. Today, the cave lion is remembered through its depictions in ancient art and literature, as well as the fossilized remains that occasionally emerge from the depths of Eurasian caves. In 2015, the discovery of 2 nearly intact cave lion cubs, frozen in the permafrost of Siberia for over 12,000 years, made headlines around the world. The remarkably preserved cubs, nicknamed Oyan and Dina, provided an unprecedented opportunity to study the anatomy and genetics of this long-extinct species. As technology advances, it's possible that extinct animals like the cave lion could be brought back to life through cloning or gene editing. However, the ethics and ecological implications of de-extinction remain hotly debated, and it's unclear whether resurrected species could thrive in a world that has changed so dramatically since their time. Another enigmatic creature that captured the imaginations of ancient civilizations was the griffon. This mythical beast, with the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle, appears in the art and literature of many cultures, from ancient Mesopotamia to medieval Europe. But could the griffin have been inspired by a real animal? Some scholars have suggested that the griffin myth may have originated from ancient travelers' encounters with the fossils of Protoceratops, a small horned dinosaur that lived in what is now Mongolia and China during the Cretaceous period, around 75 million years ago. Protoceratops was a herbivorous dinosaur, about the size of a sheep, with a large bony frill extending from the back of its skull and a sharp beak-like mouth. When Protoceratops died, its body would sometimes be buried in sand, which over time would harden into sandstone. As the soft tissues decayed, the skeleton would fall apart, leaving the skull, beak, and frill intact. To ancient observers, these fossilized remains may have looked like the head of a bird attached to the body of a lion-like creature, giving rise to the idea of the griffon. The theory that Protoceratops fossils inspired the griffin myth is supported by the fact that many of the earliest known griffin depictions come from the ancient Persian and Scythian cultures of Central Asia, which would have had access to the fossil beds of the Gobi Desert where Protoceratops remains are abundant. From there, the idea of the griffin may have spread westward along the Silk Road, evolving and taking on new meanings as it was adopted by different cultures. The griffin became a symbol of power, courage, and nobility, and was often associated with gods, kings, and heroes. While we may never know for certain if Protoceratops fossils gave rise to the griffin myth, the idea that a long-extinct dinosaur could have shaped the imaginations of ancient peoples is a fascinating one. It reminds us that the natural world has always been a source of wonder and mystery for humans, and that our understanding of the past is constantly evolving as we uncover new evidence and make new connections. The next creature on our list is the mighty woolly mammoth, which coexisted with humans for millennia. Standing up to 13 feet tall and weighing as much as 12,000 pounds, woolly mammoths were covered in a thick, shaggy coat that protected them from the frigid temperatures of their Ice Age habitat. Mammoths roamed the steppe tundra of Eurasia and North America in vast herds, grazing on hardy grasses and herbs. Ancient humans both hunted mammoths and depicted them in cave art. Thousands of mammoth bones found at a 15,000-year-old prehistoric settlement in Russia suggest the animals were butchered for meat, hide, and ivory. The woolly mammoth declined at the end of the Pleistocene, likely due to a combination of climate change and human hunting pressure. As the Earth emerged from the last ice age around 12,000 years ago, rising temperatures and changing precipitation patterns led to the transformation of the mammoth steppe into forests, tundra, and grasslands. The mammoth's preferred habitat of cold, dry steppe dwindled, and they faced increasing competition from other grazing animals like bison and elk. At the same time, human hunters armed with sophisticated stone weapons targeted mammoths for their meat and tusks, which were used to make tools, art, and dwellings. This combination of environmental and anthropogenic pressures proved too much for the woolly mammoth, and the species was driven to extinction across most of its range by around 10,000 years ago. However, the mammoth story doesn't end there. An isolated population persisted on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean until around 4,000 years ago, long after the Pleistocene megafauna had vanished from the mainland. The survival of the Wrangel Island mammoths is a testament to the adaptability and resilience of this species, which managed to hang on in a remote refuge for thousands of years after its kind had disappeared from the rest of the world. The last mammoths on Wrangel Island would have been contemporaries of the ancient Egyptians and Sumerians, and it's intriguing to think that news of these strange, shaggy beasts might have reached the ears of the pyramid builders and the scribes of Mesopotamia. Today, the woolly mammoth is one of the best known and most iconic of all extinct animals, thanks to the wealth of frozen carcasses, skeletons, and artifacts that have been discovered across Eurasia and North America. Scientists have been able to extract well-preserved DNA from mammoth remains, providing insight into the species' evolutionary history and genetics. This has led to speculation about the possibility of bringing the woolly mammoth back from extinction through cloning or genetic engineering. While the technical challenges of de-extinction are formidable and the ecological and ethical implications are still being debated, the idea of mammoths once again roaming the tundra has captured the public imagination. Another creature that has long fascinated humans is the giant ground sloth, a group of large, slow-moving mammals that once roamed the Americas. The largest of these behemoths was the Megatherium, which could stand up to 20 feet tall on its hind legs and weigh up to 4 tons. Megatherium lived in South America during the Pleistocene epoch and went extinct around 10,000 years ago, shortly after the arrival of humans on the continent. Despite its name, Megatherium was not closely related to modern sloths, which are small, tree-dwelling animals. Instead, it belonged to a separate lineage of ground sloths that evolved in isolation in South America for millions of years. Megatherium had a bulky body, massive claws, and a small head with a long snout and powerful jaw muscles. It was likely a herbivore, using its claws to pull down branches and strip leaves from trees. Fossils of Megatherium and other giant ground sloths have been found across South America, often in association with human artifacts. Some ancient cultures, such as the Paracas people of Peru, even depicted giant sloths in their art, suggesting that they may have encountered these animals in the flesh. The extinction of Megatherium and other ground sloths coincides with the arrival of human hunters in the Americas, leading some researchers to suggest that overhunting may have played a role in their demise. However, the role of humans in the extinction of the giant ground sloths is still debated. Climate change and habitat loss may also have contributed to their decline. As the Pleistocene glaciers retreated and sea levels rose, the lush forests and grasslands that supported Megatherium and its kin gave way to drier, more open habitats. The giant ground sloths, with their specialized diets and slow reproductive rates, may have been unable to adapt to these rapid environmental changes. The legacy of Megatherium and the other giant ground sloths lives on in the folklore and mythology of the indigenous peoples of South America. In some tales, the giant sloths are depicted as wise and benevolent creatures, while in others they are fearsome monsters that must be appeased with offerings and sacrifices. These stories hint at the complex relationships that may have existed between early humans and the megafauna they encountered, and the enduring impact that these long-lost giants had on the cultures that shared their world. For our final extinct animal, we journey to ancient New Zealand, where the first Polynesian settlers found themselves face to face with the enormous moa. The largest of these flightless birds stood up to 12 feet tall and weighed over 500 pounds, a ratite that would have towered over the tallest humans. There were 9 species of moa, adapted to habitats ranging from coastal dunelands to subalpine zones. These avian giants were herbivores, using their long necks to browse on the leaves, fruit and twigs of shrubs and trees. Moa were swift runners, but defenseless against the spears and snares of expert Polynesian hunters. The arrival of humans in New Zealand around 700 years ago marked the beginning of the end for the moa. The first Polynesians, known as the Maori, found an abundance of large, naive birds that were easy to hunt and provided a rich source of meat, bones, and feathers. Butchered moa bones are abundant in early archaeological sites, pointing to the bird's importance as a food resource for the first New Zealanders. As human populations grew and spread across the islands, hunting pressure on the moa intensified. At the same time, the Maori cleared large tracts of forest for agriculture and settlements, destroying the moa's habitat and food sources. The combination of overhunting and habitat loss proved catastrophic for the moa, which had evolved in the absence of mammalian predators and had no defenses against human hunters. Within just 200 years of human arrival on New Zealand, all 9 species of moa were extinct. The loss of the moa also had cascading effects on New Zealand's ecosystems, as the birds had played important roles in seed dispersal and nutrient cycling. The extinction of the moa also spelled doom for the Haast's eagle, the world's largest known eagle, which was a specialized moa predator. By the time European explorers reached New Zealand's shores in the 1700s, the moa was already lost to history. The story of the moa is a sobering reminder of the incredible speed with which human activities can drive species to extinction, particularly on islands with unique and vulnerable fauna. New Zealand's biota evolved in isolation for millions of years, and the arrival of humans with their rats, dogs, and hunting technology was a catastrophic shock to the system. The MOA's demise foreshadows the wave of extinctions that would sweep across the Pacific as Polynesian settlers colonized island after island, wiping out native birds and reptiles that had no defenses against the new invaders. Today, the MOA is a powerful symbol of New Zealand's lost natural heritage and a cautionary tale about the fragility of island ecosystems. Efforts are underway to protect and restore New Zealand's remaining native species, which continue to face threats from invasive predators and habitat loss. The legacy of the moa also lives on in Maori culture and art, where the bird is remembered as a symbol of strength, power, and the deep connection between humans and the natural world.